5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
This is the 5 on Film podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of 5 on Film, the podcast where we try and break down the top 5 in the world of film. I'm your host, Paul Cree, and joining me again is the full crew. Chris.
Hello.
John.
Hello. How you doing?
Matt.
Hello, guys.
And Ollie.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Nice to have everybody back again. Just want to say thank you for everybody who's watched us on YouTube. This is our third episode on YouTube. And it's been nice to have some positive feedback of people looking at us, which was surprising. But yeah,
we got positive feedback.
We got a little bit of positive feedback. We've had a comment or two. Yeah, it's been nice. But feel free to subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you can get any updates of our new videos on YouTube. And
pop your top fives below as well.
Yeah, top fives in the comment section. Tell us if we got this right or got this wrong. Yeah, so all those videos, we'd appreciate all that feedback. Here's how the show works. We're going to have 3 rounds: nomination, elimination, ranking. We're first going to each nominate a film we reckon deserves to be on this week's top 5. Once we get hopefully 7 films, we're going to eliminate 2 of them and then end up with 5 films which we're going to rank into our top 5 and give us this week's 5 on film. And we kind of came up with this one together, but Ollie basically suggested this topic. So Ollie, what are we doing this week?
This week we're doing Steven Spielberg movies. I think Steven Spielberg, whenever you think of best director or favorite director, for me, he's always near at the top of that list, if not at the top of that list. He's made so many movies that I love. He's done all kinds of different genres and absolutely nailed them. He's done sci-fi, he's done historical movies, he's done kids more aimed at children, he's done dramas, he's done movies set in the future, he's done lots of movies with aliens, which we all like. So yeah, he's absolutely fantastic, and he's won 2 Oscars, been nominated for lots more. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Excellent. Well, you're there, Ollie. This week we're going to start with you. So what is our first nomination for Steven Spielberg directed films?
So my first nomination is a film that I grew up watching. I used to run around rolling in bushes with my friends as a child, pretending to be this character. This particular one might not be everyone's favorite in this series, but it was definitely my favorite growing up. And I rewatched the trilogy. There is more in the series than that, but I rewatched all. It's a trilogy. Yeah. So I rewatched the 3 that I love, and because I was thinking, am I the one that's wrong here? Is the other one better? But I'm sticking to my guns. I personally believe that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is the best Indiana Jones movie. I feel like I watched this at the cinema, but I don't know that I did. I definitely watched The Last Crusade at the cinema. It came out in 1984, so I'd have been 1. So unless it was like a re-release that I watched at the cinema, I probably didn't. And I'm just remembering watching The Last Crusade at the cinema. But yeah, for me, it's just got everything in it that I want from a fantastic movie. So it starts, like the opening scene is fantastic. It's very James Bond-esque, the opening scene. Indiana Jones is in Shanghai. He's meeting with some like Chinese mobsters to do a bit of a deal. He's trading the ashes of an old kind of emperor for this huge diamond. And then he realizes when he's in the club, he's kind of double crossed and he gets poisoned. So then he's less interested in the diamond. He's more interested in getting the antidote to this poison. Whilst we're in the club, we meet the female lead, who's played by Steven Spielberg's wife,
Kate Capshaw.
Kate Capshaw, thank you. And then there's an excellent bit where they're kind of, she's hunting around on the floor for the diamond, he's hunting around for the antidote, and then they manage to escape. And they get onto a plane, and there's Indiana Jones's mini sidekick. We meet him, and he kind of drives off. And I think the bit that kind of really connected me to this film as a child was the child actor who played Short Round in the film. I think Steven Spielberg does this so brilliantly. He casts children in his movies so well, and if you're watching that as a child, that's your kind of link, that's your into the movie, and you really kind of get sucked into it. They had such a great chemistry. Harrison Ford and Ki Hui Kwan, I believe his name is, who played Short Round, the young kind of Chinese. He was originally a pickpocket who then Indiana Jones kind of befriends. You don't kind of see that, but they had such a good chemistry, and he ends up saving Indiana Jones at least once kind of throughout the movie. I think the Temple of Doom, the temple set is absolutely fantastic, really quite creepy and dark. And I think as a young kind of 6, 7, 8-year-old boy, whenever it was that I first watched it, that really kind of drew me in. I liked the kind of the chanting and and like the sacrifice, and there's the creepy scene with the dinner scene where you have the snake and the snake split open. All that creeped me out. Monkey brain soup. I'm rambling, but anyway, it's such a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites. The minecart chase sequence, I think, it's one of the best in the trilogy, as we've now dubbed it. So it's my favorite Indiana Jones film. It's pretty much near the top of my Steven Spielberg directed movies list. So I'd like to nominate Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah. I'm next on this, and I think it's a good film. I think it's the best prequel ever made, Ollie.
Yeah, because I meant to mention that. I didn't realise it was a prequel until you told me. So I think part of the reason that we're even doing this podcast is these little conversations that we've all had with each other. And I didn't ever know that Temple of Doom was a prequel until you told me that in one of our chats. So sort of, for me, it's almost the birth of this podcast, those different chats that we have, and you educated me on it. So.
Yeah, so I think it is a great film, but for me, it's the weakest of the trilogy. So because of that, I'm going to say no. I like the other two more. I think you get more from the character in especially in one of the films, which may come up. So for me, it's a no on the top 7, I'm afraid. Chris?
It's a no for me as well. It's my least favourite of the original trilogy. Although it does have its moments. Like you say, Ollie, the opening scene in Club Obi-Wan is very James Wan-esque, and it's a really good scene. But then when we meet Willie properly, and when they go on the adventure, it's just her constant screaming and the racist undertones about it being in India and the dinner scene. It's not for me. And I was always disappointed when ITV would cut out the heart scene, the moving of the heart, because that formed our childhood, traumatizing us. Like
I was traumatized by that moment. That did scare the crap out of me. So
but no, I have a different Indiana Jones film on my list.
John?
Right. Are we going to have which Indiana Jones film deserves to go on this list now?
No,
because it's not. Because for me, it's not Temple. It's not Temple of Doom.
There are two very strong contenders.
Yeah,
I think they all have their merits, don't they?
Well, no.
Sorry, no one's sorry.
No,
We've
I am
got
not.
there yet.
I'm not talking about the fan fiction film that was made a few years ago. Okay, but no, I'm pretty much in the same camp as Chris. I mean, the adventure itself is actually all right, but it's just done really, really slapdash. It's almost like the Star Trek odds and evens, where you get a good one, you get a bad one, you get a good one, you get a bad one, no, very bad one, and then they try and reboot it again. I don't like Temple of Doom. I don't like the screaming kids. It really does come down to the fact that those kids really rile me up, and I hate the screaming. So not this one.
Okay,
But
so
I have mine in reserve. So
yep. So it hasn't made the list, Ollie, I'm afraid. Matt, what Temple of Doom?
It's unfortunate, really, isn't it? Because there are very, very like razor thin levels of enjoyability. It's very subjective when it comes to Raiders films, with Indiana Jones films, I should say. And yeah, it's razor thin between them. And I actually am with Ollie here. I'm going to say no, but I'm with Ollie in the fact that I adore the trilogy. I really struggle to place them across one another. But there are, in my opinion, two stronger out of the first trilogy. But that's not to say that Temple of Doom is about it's got the best, I think, up there with the best opening sequence in any movie ever, with the Busby Berkeley dance number. I was terrified, as Chris said, with the removal of the heart, which was cut out so often that you'd forgotten that it was actually part of the movie, and until seeing it later on digital, I remembered, oh my god, yeah, there are parts in there that were cut out quite savagely. And the giant guy at the end, the guy with the whip, I don't know whether to recall his name or not, but he's the guy that got squashed in the rock breaking.
He's played by Pat Roach.
Yes,
Pat Roach.
So he was in all of the. He was in all of them, and he always played like the big henchman. So in Raiders, he was a big like German mechanic with a tatted bald head.
Was he the one that got?
But he's also in.
Though.
No, but
he was always a henchman.
I'm wondering. I think Matt's talking about the main baddie. Are you?
I'm not. I'm talking about the main henchman, not the main baddie, not Mola Ram.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
the main
the big fight.
Yeah, he blacked up for
Did he?
that
right,
role.
okay, right, yeah. And that section where he gets squashed inside the rock breaking engine thing was the bit that freaked me out, and also the what do you call it, the voodoo doll thing where they were and making them drink the black liquid.
So many
we don't know. So brilliant, and I do love it immensely, but it's just. It's so hard to split them, to be honest. But yeah, there are two better ones in the trilogy. Sorry.
The reason why it became a prequel was because Steven Spielberg didn't want Indiana Jones to cheat on Marion. So that's why they set it beforehand, so that he didn't end up cheating on Marion with Willie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that makes sense.
He married her instead. Steven Spielberg, because they weren't married, were they? Before, I think they met during the making of this film. I think Kate Capshaw and Steven Spielberg. I think, as far as I know.
Well, he was initially married to, I'm going to say, Amy Smart.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I think that's her name.
Once before, yeah.
It was Amy Irving. Anyway, yes. Basically, I think they got together after or during the divorce. So yeah. Going back to Pat Roach though, he's the only guy to die. He dies another time in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's the big Sherpa in Marion Ravenwood's bar.
So he's in it twice. So
he's in it twice.
Yeah, he's in it twice.
I'm sure someone's going to talk about Raiders later. But yeah, brilliant. I'm glad I didn't even know that. It's brilliant. Yeah. He's in all three.
Yeah.
Right. So Temple hasn't made it. So I'm going second this week. And I'm going to go. Steven Spielberg has made two outstanding films set in World War II. and I'm going to pick the second one that he made. I'm going to go to 1998, and I'm going to nominate Saving Private Ryan as one of Steven Spielberg's best movies. Set during the Normandy landings, the opening scene, it's the invasion of Normandy on the 6th of June 1944. I'm looking at my notes, and it's just an unbelievable scene to open any movie. That could not feel more real, more harrowing, and more scary. And then the story of the platoon trying to go and find the one brother that was left of four, three of which have died, and them trying to recover Private Ryan. I think it's one of the best movies made and set in World War II. I think there's some excellent performances from the central characters, Tom Hanks included. I think it deserves to be up there as one of Steven Spielberg's best films. Just like the opening scene is probably the most memorable scene, but the scene, the sniper scene, I think is excellent as well. The tension in there, and I think the finale of the movie is a great finale. I know people ding it for the potentially the realism of them trying to hold out, but I think he executes it well, and I don't think there's when it came out, it was just a phenomenon. I think that Private Ryan is up there with one of, if not the best of Steven Spielberg's work. Chris?
Saving Private Ryan is an amazing film. I went to see it in the cinema. I was completely blown away by it. That opening scene, like you say, is absolutely harrowing. Steven Spielberg had developed frame rate effect for that, which I don't think had been used very much up until that point. And the way that it's shot is just, it felt very, very real. It's hard to describe, actually. But yes, I agree with you. It's not in my top 5, but it's just out with that. So yes, I would agree that it could go into the list.
Okay, John, Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan. The quick answer is yes. I think it's a very good, very grown up, very well made piece of film history. It's it just goes on the list because that first section, the Normandy landings, is just so immersive. It's amazing.
Matt, I'm going to say you're on mute, so you know.
Sorry.
That's all right. Saving Private Ryan?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. That year was a good year for World War II movies, in the fact that we had the return of Terrence Malick, which I know is some of your favourite films that he makes there, Paul. With the Thin Red Line. Yeah. So that was quite an exceptional year for those two films, two World War films. And as all of you have said, sitting in that cinema, the first 25 to 30 minutes was so all-engrossing and so harrowing. I didn't quite know what to think, to be honest. And I'd heard stories from my granddad about World War II, and he wasn't particularly old, and I don't think he saw any fighting, but he told me stories from his friends about the landings and that the British forces had, which was a different beach, I think, wasn't it? And you know, obviously he didn't live to see this film, but I just took it for granted that these were stories that he told me, and you know, albeit they felt exciting coming from him, seeing it on screen like that was just something else. And I often get motion sickness in cinema, and I got it from the first quarter of the film, and I had to put my head between my knees. It was that bad. And I'm glad I stayed and didn't go out, because I would have normally have done that. I would have gone and had a glass of water outside, or 5 minutes outside, and come back in. And for me, I'm glad I didn't. It's just a sensational film. It does drag a little bit in the middle. My actual favourite bit, that being said, is the bit where Giovanni Ribisi, as the medic, dies. Is just heartbreaking. But yeah, for me, I'm happy, more than happy to put it on. Fantastic film.
That's for Ollie. 5 yeses.
I preferred the porno remake, Shaving Ryan's Privates, personally. No, I'm joking. I've never seen it. I've got the DVD. I think when it came out, it was the most realistic war movie ever made. And yeah, like you said, that opening scene is absolute carnage. It just kind of shows you like the madness and the kind of the cost of war in that instant. They're kind of coming out of the landing boats and just being like mowed down. Interesting little snippet about that opening kind of scene there. Vin Diesel was an extra in that scene on the beach. And if you look close enough, you can spot him. And they all had to kind of smoke cigarettes, and he was smoking a lot of cigarettes. So apparently that's where he got his raspy voice from. Vin Diesel was from kind of the weeks he spent as an extra on that kind of beach scene. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic movie. The last like standoff bit at the end where they think they're kind of done in, I think it's brilliant. And Matt Damon is Private Ryan. They find him at the end, and you couldn't be more happy that Tom Hanks has completed his mission. Yeah, fantastic.
Is this the first movie where someone has to go and find Matt Damon?
I think it probably is. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose Robin Williams kind of has to do it in a metaphorical sense.
He has to find himself, doesn't he? Matt Damon has to find
Well,
himself.
yes.
That was Pixar's
Ben
original.
Affleck was useless, couldn't find him.
It was Pixar's original movie. It wasn't Finding Nemo, it was Finding Matt. And apparently Ed Norton turned the role down. This is what I'm just looking on the internet now.
Foolish.
Yeah, Ed Norton turned it down. Foolish boy. I think.
Although, no, that was after Primal Fear, wasn't it? Primal Fear was 96. So I was about to say, Primal Fear.
American History X, you mean?
Well, yeah, sorry. I was thinking I wouldn't have forgoed Ed Norton's turn in Primal Fear, because I think that's like masterful filmmaking.
Did he do that after? Did he take that?
No, it was before. American History X was 98. You were right.
No,
So
I mean you were talking about Primal Fear, so he did that probably instead of Private Ryan, right? Okay.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Which is a great movie. Primal Fear, yes, good movie.
Yes,
good movie.
excellent film. So yes, right. So that's the first one on the list. We have one. Chris, can you nominate a second one?
What are you going to go for, Chris?
What could you possibly go for?
I think I am going to nominate Jaws. It's Steven Spielberg's kind of breakout film. It invented the blockbuster. It is about a shark terrorizing a small seaside town in the height of summer, and the Sheriff Brody, his new sheriff in town, has just started the job, and he is trying to protect the beach, and he realizes that the shark is attacking people, and he wants to shut the beach down, but the mayor is insistent on keeping the beaches open for the revenue, and sure enough, the shark, which we don't see for a very long chunk of the film, terrorizes Amityville, and it's just amazing. John Williams created the shark. Famously, Bruce, as it was known, the animatronic, refused to work. So Steven Spielberg had to kind of change what he was going to do with the filming, and it was all done from the shark's POV point of view, and John Williams' music. which is absolutely iconic. And it's just an amazing film. The jump scares are brilliant, still get me now. And it's fantastic. And then obviously it gets to the point where Quint, who is like this sort of grizzled seaman, he agrees to hunt the shark along with I've forgotten the actor's
Cooper.
name. Yes,
Richard
Cooper.
Dreyfuss.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Thank you, Richard Dreyfuss, who's a marine biologist, and the three of them go out and hunt this shark down, and it's just amazing. And then it ends up with a standoff between Brody and the shark. Love that film.
Amazing. John, it's over your shoulder. Are you going to say yes to Jaws?
Oh, just to be clear, that the ones on the back does not, just if they're on the back, it does not mean if I'm going to nominate them.
Yeah.
Yes, Jaws. It's, as you say, it is pure suspense. The initial attack at the beginning, you just don't. I saw this when I was slightly too young, when it was broadcast on TV. So it was. So I kind of saw this, and it's a girl running along the beach, running into the water, having a swim at dusk, and then all of a sudden it all goes horribly wrong. And also when Hooper goes down into the goes diving looking for evidence, and the head pops out of the boat every single time. I know it's coming every single time. There has never been such a expression on anyone's face as Roy Scheider when the bailing chum and then the biggest set of teeth come at him, and he just turns around and goes, "We're going to need a bigger boat." Yeah, no, it's really good. And and Quint is just an excellent character. A proper grizzled old sea dog. Brilliant. Yeah, on the list.
Matt, Jaws?
Absolutely. Another one you can't say no to. It's so good that if anyone hasn't seen it, then they just need to sort it out as soon as possible. I probably saw it a little bit too young, a bit like John, and I wasn't necessarily scared as I was more excited by it. I think the thrill of the movie got me more than the scares and stuff. I've never really been afraid of like marine animals, and I've often, scuba dive quite a lot, and I don't worry about that sort of stuff, and I would happily get into a shark cage. But if you put me like on top of a mountain or a bungee jump, I wouldn't be able to do it. But so for that, I wasn't really necessarily scared. It was just so thrilling, and Robert Shaw as Quint, and the scene that they have when they're on the boat, where they're explaining all their injuries and how they've got them, scars and bite marks and war wounds, and he goes on to do the famous monologue about the is it the
Minneapolis.
USS Minneapolis.
Indianapolis,
sorry.
Indianapolis, yeah.
That for me is one of the greatest single pieces of acting in cinema. It's just sensational, and it hasn't lost on any of its spark. I'll be honest. And even though the animatronics are a bit cringy now, as John said, that scene underwater it just gets you. You just know it's coming. But fantastic film, absolutely 10 out of 10, perfect.
Just as a side point, that scene was filmed in the producer's swimming pool at his house. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, why did he have a massive, great shipwrecked boat in the bottom of the swimming pool?
I think they couldn't get out onto the sea to do it, and it just worked out. It's cheaper just having a little bit of the boat, and then have the producer. The producer was the one who actually pushed the
See
head
the
out.
dead body? Oh no,
Yeah.
the
camera.
body.
Wow. Ollie, it's made the list.
So if you watch Jaws in reverse, it's the heartwarming tale of a shark giving amputees back their legs. So yeah, no, Jaws is a fantastic movie. I absolutely loved it. I think I was probably about 10 when I first watched it, so probably a bit too young. And the next time we kind of went on holiday and were like swimming at the beach and like jumping off the end of a jetty, I did actually kind of like look down and freak out a little bit. That kind of big expanse of kind of blue open water, it did make me stop and think for a long time. It's one of those movies where you kind of seriously have to think, when is the right time to show it to kids? And it probably isn't until mid-teens, I'd have said. Yeah, absolutely love Jaws. Definitely put it on the list.
And it'd been a yes from me as well. I watched this when I was young and got freaked out, and then didn't watch it for years and years and years. And it was recently, when I say recently, I'm talking about the last 2 to 3 years, re-released at the cinema, and I went back and watched it on the big screen. And yeah, that was an amazing experience, just to watch this film that I hadn't seen in such a long time, because it had made that effect on me because I was too young watching it. Scared me, and I didn't want to watch it again for so long. And then going back to it, watching it on the big screen, that scene on the boat with Robert Shaw doing his bit about the Indianapolis, I think it's just class acting. And yeah, I jumped like a little girl when that head came out, when watching it on the big screen. I knew it was coming. I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's coming, and I just jumped out of my seat. It could not. So, but yeah, it was a yes from me as well. So unanimous. Jaws is on there as well. So we got 2. John, can you give us a third one?
Right then. Do I steal Chris's, or do we have the debate, or do I just go, or do I go for something completely different? Okay, I'm gonna go for one that I don't know if you guys will have seen it necessarily. It's not one of his bigger films. It's not particularly huge, but it's Richard Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter and John Goodman, and the film is called Always. Now, this I'm mentioning this one because actually it's actually one where he manages to pull all the emotional strings all at the right time, as opposed to pulling off any big dramatic set pieces or any flashy stunts or anything like that. This is quite literally a love story between Richard Dreyfuss, who is a pilot fighting forest fires, and his girlfriend Holly Hunter, who works the tower back at base, and his best mate John Goodman. And one day they're fighting fires, getting the fire jumpers out of the forest and dousing away. And unfortunately, this is when Richard Dreyfuss's plane crashes and he dies. He then gets the opportunity to go back and try and basically he's a spirit going back, and it's his love for Holly Hunter that draws him back, and it's a story about how he ends up trying to move her on in her life, and how he comes to accept that this is no longer going to be the case, and basically in the opening sequence after the fire, there's a guy who flies in. He's a pilotogram sort of thing, and he's young, he's stupid, but he can fly a plane. So, and no one takes him seriously. But after he dies, he ends up finding this guy again and being this guy's inspiration. So teaching him to fly, teaching him how to sort out his life, start to use his head and his brains and things. So the guy ends up going back to the fire jumper school to become a pilot, where John Goodman's his teacher, and they're trying to put out this targeting this little oil fire with the sand and stuff, and he goes completely off course, and Richard Dreyfuss kind of whispering in his ear, no, you're well off. Oh, go on, go do it anyway. Go on, you're gonna hit him. So he ends up dropping his fire suppressant all over John Goodman as he's sitting there watching the target practice. Guy gets kicked out again, but then he gets him back. He gets him back into flight school. Forest fires start again, but Richard Dreyfuss's character then sits there with Holly Hunter while she's sleeping and while she's talking in her sleep, and there's lots of lovely couple type moments that they can't actually be together, they can't touch or anything like that, and yet they can still they can still be part of one another. And his character is guided by an old spirit, an angel type character called Hep, who is Audrey Hepburn in, I think, one of her final roles, just guiding him through, trying to point him in the right direction so he can get on with his spirit, and she can get on with her life after him. It is a really sweet film, and it's got some great fire jumping scenes in it. Holly Hunter's character ends up actually flying to save people, and that's kind of the big denouement of the film. So her going and actually having to fly planes and save people, and then her plane running out of fuel and having to crashing in a lake. But everything works out fine in the end. I recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's but yeah, always. I think this is one of those outliers which at least should be mentioned, if not.
Matt, what do you think of Always?
I have seen it. I only ever caught it on home release on television. I never actually sought it out, but I have seen it a couple of times, and it is one of my favorites. It's totally unlike anything Spielberg has did before, or has done since. And I'm really glad John brought it up. I did consider talking about it. I didn't get to rewatch it again, which I would have liked to have done. It's a delightful film. It really is absolutely lovely, and everything John said is completely applicable. I think it should definitely be sought out if you're even anywhere interested in any of Spielberg films. And Richard Dreyfuss in another fantastic performance, and delightful performance by Holly Hunter as well. I don't know a lot about the movie itself and its development, but it seems to me like it might have been based on something, or whether it was. It seems to me like it has a lot of qualities from an early era film. That's what it had, the sensibilities to me when I originally saw it.
It is actually a remake of a World War II film about a bomber pilot and his missus, and I can't remember what it is for the life of me.
Right.
So, Matter of Life and Death.
I was going to say,
that one.
It reminds me a lot of Powell and Pressburger films, A Matter of Life and Death, as John, as Chris said. It's got a lot of those styles that Powell and Pressburger in that particular film had. It's a very good film, but I actually had it down at number 10. But it's definitely one you should search out.
So is that a no?
Thank you, John,
then?
for bringing it up.
Is that a no, Matt? Then? 'Cause
Sorry,
it's at
I did
number
say no
10.
at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. Ollie, always.
I've not seen that one, so I have to say no.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately in the same boat, John. I've not seen it either. It's not. It's never come around to it. And there was a more iconic one that I hadn't seen of Spielberg's that I had to make sure that I'd watched before we did this list. So I didn't get a chance to check Always out, but I would like to. Chris?
I've not seen it, but when John was describing it, it sounded like the plot of A Matter of Life and Death.
Oh.
So, and I'm a big fan of that, so I will have to check out Always.
Just to say that the film is 1943 romantic drama, A Guy Named Joe.
Okay.
A Guy
There
Named
you
Joe.
go.
Wow.
Yes.
There you go. That was the basis. Well, we've still got two. Matt, have you got one for us?
I hope so. I'm gonna make. Well, as I said earlier, it's an embarrassment of riches for us to choose from here. I mean, it's like going down the biscuit aisle in Waitrose and just seeing, oh, I'll have that packet. No, I really fancy that packet. No, I'll have that packet. You just can't choose between them, really. It's really, really hard, really difficult. And this list could be 15 long, to be honest. But I'm going to go. I've gone fairly classic for all of mine, ones that I'm hoping to put in. So I'm going to jump in with probably that one that you said you just watched, Paul. The one that you thought you had to see before anything else. I'm going to go for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's, for me, an absolute masterpiece. Even more so than Jaws, I'll be honest. Jaws came first. He'd done Sugarland Express before Jaws, and then Jaws, and then he came back and he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And the scope of that film was like nothing anyone had ever seen, I think. Not being around when it came out in 1977, which I believe was the same year as Star Wars, was it? It must have come out the same year.
Yeah, correct.
Same year as Star Wars. And for me, Close Encounters is the antithesis of a Star Wars movie. It's the complete opposite, but with a similar kind of scope. It's absolutely staggering, the technical achievement that Spielberg and his crew managed to put on screen. He hired the help of Douglas Trumbull, who'd done the special effects for Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and picked a cinematographer who was, I think he's Hungarian, Vilmos Zsigmond his name is, and he was renowned for working in 70mm. And a lot of the special effects were filmed in 70mm, but the film just looks so beautiful. And I know the special effects nowadays, with a lot of these films, can look a little bit dated, and to some extent they do. But for me, having seen the film so many times over multiple decades, it just doesn't make any difference to me anymore. And having seen it now, and a lot of these films that I've gone and rewatched again over the last 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, I've watched for the first time on digital, on some of them on 4K. And I've seen details in these movies on the remasters that I've never seen before. And a lot of the special effects do stand up very, very well, considering they were made 40 years ago, or some of them. Anyway, so yeah, he'd made Jaws, and how do you follow Jaws? It was a massive, massive hit. He came back with this extremely personal film of his. And although a lot of other people had tinkered with the screenplay, and the screen story and the screenplay was credited to Spielberg. And it was a hugely personal film for him. I just love the atmosphere. It's got this really kind of like dreamlike, ethereal kind of it reminds me a lot of like The Abyss. When I saw The Abyss the first time, I had James Cameron's The Abyss. I had the same kind of emotions that I felt when I first saw Close Encounters. Similar themes, and it's got it dips a bit in the middle. There's several different versions of the film. I mean, I haven't gone into the synopsis of it really. I'll briefly go over it. It's Richard Dreyfuss, Terry Garr, and Melinda Dillon, her name is. And Richard Dreyfuss plays Roy Neary, and he has a close encounter. He's with his family. He's an electrician. He's a lineman. He goes out and fixes problems with electrical issues for the county. And he gets a call one night. He's at home with the kids, and his family life just looks so mentally hectic. It just looks hectic. He's got these kids here. The house is an absolute tip. He's got one of his children smashing
it's very relatable. It's very relatable.
Yeah, hugely relatable. And they're discussing whether they're going to go to crazy golf, goofy golf as they're calling it, or go to watch Pinocchio. Pinocchio, as you'll probably know, is a massive running theme through a lot of Spielberg's films. So he gets a phone call. This is about maybe even 15, 20 minutes into the film. Is it a cold open on this one? I can't remember. Are the titles first, or is it because Spielberg does quite a lot of cold opens? I
think this one opens in the desert.
It does.
Yeah, no,
in the sandstorm.
There's no
They
titles,
discover
there's
the aeroplanes and things, don't they?
Yeah. What I meant,
I think there was.
When you do a cold open,
credits.
Yeah, they just ditch you straight into the movie. And I think this did have it. They go into the Mexican desert, don't they? And they discover these airplanes that are from nowhere. And that sequence was completely filmed months after principal photography had finished, because Spielberg saw a rough edit of the film and didn't feel that they had a wow moment at the beginning where the audience would be able to go, "What the hell is happening?" And so he he didn't reshoot, he shot a whole new sequence, and that became the opening sequence. And it is that kind of, oh my God, these planes have come out of nowhere, they're just, what is happening? And you're mirroring the interpreter who's interpreting to the director Francois Truffaut, who Spielberg was quite friendly with, and he brought in to do an acting job. I don't know why, but he's very good in this, very, very good as the mysterious kind of head of I suppose you'd think of it as like a SETI, like a extraterrestrial life. Anyway, I digress. So he has Roy Neary, the Richard Dreyfuss character, has an experience, and there's just a glorious scene where almost like gravity, he's waiting to get across a train line, and he's parked in the middle of the road, and this is one of Spielberg's fantastic stylistic touches. 2 minutes before, he'd done the same thing, and a car had pulled up behind him in the fog, and the car headlights were there, and he beeps the car and he says, come past me, and the car just drives around and goes past him. He sets up the same scene again, and it's headlights, and this time the headlights just raise above the back of the windscreen and go on top of the car, and this huge massive light comes down, and everything changes. Gravity almost changes, and they've obviously filmed it by putting him in one of those gyroscope things, because he's going upside down, but it doesn't look like he's going upside down. And so he has an experience. I could go on. I'm just rambling. It's such a good film. The only problem that I have with it is that it does drag a little bit in the middle, where he can't understand why he's having visions after witnessing this close encounter. We're seeing scenes where we're following the team who are actually the government team who are actually looking for these extraterrestrials, and then we go back and forth between them and the home life of the Richard Dreyfuss character, and he's having visions, and he's seeing mysterious locations and monuments in his dreams and in his waking visions, and he starts to try and mold them in everyday objects. And there's a big section in the middle, about 15-20 minutes in the middle, where he can't cope with what he's trying to cope with, and he can't understand what's going on. And so he goes a bit crazy, and it does drag a little bit. That's the only thing that I sort of have an issue with. But the ending is the last sort of like 45 minutes of them Oh, I completely forgot. I've completely forgotten to talk about the young boy, and it's just marvelous. See the film. It's a famous sequence where all the toy robots, all the toy mechanical cars and robots are all coming to life, and the lights are coming through the doors, and this young boy is like enticed off screen by what we assume is an entity from another world, and we don't quite know what it is at that moment. And Spielberg, again, as Ollie mentioned earlier on, he's got this brilliant ability to pick child actors. And this kid I don't know what they did to get him to react the way he did. He doesn't say anything. He's just reacting to what's off screen so perfectly. Anyway, he gets abducted. That whole sequence is absolutely stunning. Yeah, I mean, I could go on, and I already have rambled, but the John Williams score is fantastic. I've got tons of notes. I won't go into more. Try and see two versions of the film. There's the original, which you'll never get anymore. There's the special edition, which was released in cinemas and for the home release from 1980 onwards, which included extra scenes and had scenes removed. And there's extra scenes at the end where contact is made with the alien craft, which probably, Paul, you haven't seen. If you've only ever seen the film once, you've probably seen the director's cut, which removed all those bits.
Oh no, I watched the special edition. I didn't watch the director's cut. I watched the special edition.
So you saw
that's the only version
the,
I've seen. Yes.
Right.
Is that the one where they go up into the craft and
they go inside the craft? Yeah, you see parts of the inside of the alien mothership. So for me, that's the version that I grew up with. And I only saw the director's cut when it was released in 1997. And it had bits when he was going crazy. He put back in the bits in the middle, which I didn't like originally, and Spielberg put them back in. Both versions have merits, so try and see both of them. If you haven't seen the movie, but for whatever reason, if you haven't seen it, try and see both versions. Just sensational. A lot of people don't really like it, and I don't know why, but for me, it's my number one Spielberg movie. So I'm hoping it can go on. Fingers crossed.
Okie doke. Ollie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
So after the success of Jaws, Spielberg is basically given carte blanche to make whatever movie he wanted to make, and this is what he wrote, and this is the movie that he chose to make. It builds and builds and builds and builds throughout the entire movie, and you almost drip fed these kind of experiences, a bit like the main character is. He kind of experienced these things and he doesn't know why, and he goes a bit crazy, like Matt says, and he goes very crazy in the director's cut, and it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. But then the payoff at the end, when they have that kind of when they meet the aliens, is fantastic. And like that's when you imagine if we ever made contact with another kind of intelligent species, I can't see it happening any other way other than the way it happened in Close Encounters. There will be some kind of government cover-up where they say, please don't go to this area. If you do, you're going to get poisoned. There will be a huge kind of massive setup where there's hundreds of kind of military and scientists and everyone trying to figure it out. And hopefully there will be loads of little green and grey guys that kind of come out of the alien and out of a spacecraft, and are all very friendly, and everyone plays a nice little tune together.
No anal probes.
No, we don't want that bit. So if you are watching Aliens, please watch Close Encounters. This is how we'd like to experience you. I love Close Encounters. I rewatched it again the other day, and I really enjoyed it again. So yeah, put it on the list.
Thank you, Doug. I'm sorry, Matt.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. I just absolutely knew it. You saw it too late, Paul.
I think I did. And this is. So I'd never seen this movie, and it had been on my watch list for years. Me wanting to watch this movie, and I sat down and watched it for this podcast. And I'm glad I did, because I'd been wanting to watch it for years and years. And although, I think at the time, this must have been absolutely phenomenal to watch in cinema. And I think if I'd have watched it at a younger age, I think I would have been more blown away. I don't know whether it was that middle that where it dragged in the middle for me, it kind of lost me there, where I feel like I wasn't paying full attention to it. And then the ending, although it is very well done, I just didn't feel like I was engaged enough in the story. So for me, it ranked down. There's a lot more, although I would recommend people to watch this film. It is a good film, but for me, I've enjoyed a lot more of Steven Spielberg's movies, much more than I did watching this. And I've only watched this once, and I only watched it the other day. So there is a lot more of Steven Spielberg's movies that have nostalgia for me.
Yes,
and
of course.
I was possibly watching them at an age that hit me more. Watching Saving Private Ryan in the cinema at 14 kind of blew me away. Whereas watching this now, unfortunately, it didn't. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a good movie. So for me, it would have been a no for his top movies, I'm afraid. Chris?
It's an interesting one. I think it's the first time that Steven Spielberg captured that kind of awe and magic that is kind of a trademark of his. And that was the kind of the trademark, and the signs were all there for what would follow in Steven Spielberg's work. I did not see this when I was young. I actually saw this, I don't know, in my early to mid 20s. I missed it growing up. And when I did watch it, I liked the setup, and the ending was amazing. But there was something lacking for me, and I think maybe, like Paul, something to do with the middle. I don't know. I couldn't relate to the main character and the way that he was behaving. I mean, I really like the ending and the idea of the scientist communicating through music. Very, very iconic. The four notes. 5 notes. But yeah, it's not. I think it's number 8 or 9 on my list. So it's a no for me. Sorry.
2 yeses, 2 nos. John, it's all down to you.
Oh, you okay? I hear both sides. It's the Spielberg family drama bit in the middle. It doesn't. It doesn't keep up. It doesn't keep up its pace. You end up wandering away from the story. It is probably number 10 in my list. I'm going to say no, but like I say, it is iconic, and it has, and you know how iconic a film is by how many parodies it's had. So the guys playing music at the aliens and things like that. I think Spielberg was still trying to get hold of his dysfunctional family idea.
Unfortunately, that is always going to be Close Encounters' downfall. I think it's that section in the middle, which is a real shame. You do lose. I rewatched it for like the umpteenth time a couple of nights ago, and even I know it, and even knowing it as well as I do. Although I don't communicate that as well as I should, that dragged. It does drag. I mean, I don't particularly like the director's cut version over the special edition. There is less of that in the special edition, but I think you do have to have seen it because there really wasn't anything like that for many, many years, and we are spoilt with gross overaction CGI these days. The spectacle isn't necessarily there if you haven't seen it when you were younger.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I will stand up for the special effects, and I'll stand up for the storytelling at the beginning and at the end. It's just it gets very muddled in the middle because he's got about 3 or 4 different storylines, which he basically, I think he needed to kill his darlings. I think he needed to just trim that. I think it just needed to be a little bit leaner.
Yeah, it could have been an hour and 45 minutes and been a much tighter movie. There are sections of that crazy middle section that bogs down that you have to have in there because of the visions and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on because we've spoken about it now. Let's go on. It's a great movie, but he's a great director. He's got too many films.
I would recommend people seeking it out, but it hasn't made the list. So after one round of nominations, we only have 2 films. We have Saving Private Ryan and we have Jaws. So Ollie, we're back round to you. Can you give us the third film?
Let's stick on the subject of aliens. Let's phone home. Let's go E.T., the extraterrestrial. I'm sure we all watched this as children. This is one of the best ever family children movies. I've watched this so many times. I watched it probably about a year ago with my children, and they were just as taken with it as I was when I was little, which was so heartwarming for me to see them fully engaged in this movie from the 80s. Like I mentioned earlier, Steven Spielberg casts child actors so well, and it drags you straight in, and it puts you as a child watching one of his movies right in there, having that adventure with them. And it's one of those things that if you came across an alien as a child, like what would you do? Like, how would you deal with it? And it seems so real, and that's probably exactly like how you'd expect it to kind of play out in your mind. And the kids in it, they work so well together. They're little kind of family unit. It's just such a heartwarming tale of a young boy that kind of meets an alien and then becomes his so good friends with it that he cares so deeply for it. And then when the poor ET's not feeling is feeling unwell, that it affects him as well. It's incredible. Amazing storytelling, and then again you've got the kind of the government trying to come in and steal the alien from him, and how the group of kids all kind of come together to rescue ET, and it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. One of the best children's or family movies ever made, and one of Spielberg's best family movies as well. So I think E.T. will be on the list.
Don't say off the bat. I'm gonna say no again, and this is not because
what have you got against classic films, man?
not because I don't like E.T. in any way, shape, or form. I think E.T. is a lovely film. I wrote down my Steven Spielberg top 10. It's number 10, Ollie, for me. I think there are. I think. Well done, Chris. I think it is worthy of being up there as one of his best films, and for me personally, it's at number 10. So that just the embarrassment of riches that this man has there is to show, because it is a wonderful movie. I introduced it to my girls, and they loved it. I had my daughters crying. It really is a beautiful film, but I think he's made better ones, which just goes to show the credit of this filmmaker. So for me, it's a no, just because I think he's made better movies, which is phenomenal, really, because this is a great one. Chris?
I adore E.T. Every time I watch it regularly. I'm in floods of tears at the end. I watch it with my son, and we both love it. the very first birthday cake I remember is E.T. spaceship, which my mum made for me. I love the ride in Universal. It's
That is brilliant.
yeah, just everything about it. I even love the fact that in the 80s it was cool for a bunch of FBI and cops to have shotguns, aimed at these kids, which was then in the special edition changed to walkie-talkies. It's just brilliant, and Keyes, who kind of is a baddie, but then turns out that that he's actually looking out for Elliot. The audition, Elliot, the actor who played Elliot, his audition to play the part is on the special edition DVD and probably the Blu-ray and everything else. And it's amazing to hear Steven Spielberg direct him in the background behind the camera, and you can tell that everyone in the room is reduced to tears during the audition, and Steven Spielberg at the end says, "You got the part, kid." And you can see why. Like Ollie says, Steven Spielberg can find these child actors, and it just creates a fantastic connection with these children to put them in these roles. I love it. Yeah, definitely on the list.
John?
Drew Barrymore, Henry Thomas, Eleanor Eleniak. I mean, no, yeah. This again, ugly crying. This is probably the first film that I actually cried at. I mean, actually, spoilers. E.T.'s death scene is really, really heartbreaking, and then all of a sudden it all kind of turns around. It all turns around, and then you're all happy again, and then he's going home, and you don't know how to feel anymore. You don't know if you're happy or sad. It's a heck of an emotional roller coaster. I always like the bit where E.T. gets drunk watching telly, and they start dancing around the classroom and letting the frogs go free. That's always a fun one for me. But also just how he finds. But this does what Close Encounters doesn't. This works with a dysfunctional family, but doesn't let the dysfunctional family take over the plot or take over the story, and that's why it doesn't lull so much in the middle. It doesn't lose its way between two stalls. So yeah, I think this is actually one that should be on the list.
It has made the list. Matt, E.T.
Yes, E.T. Yeah, can we give some love to the John Williams soundtrack as well? It's just one of a kind, man. One of a kind. And John's right. For me, and I wrote it down here when I was doing my notes for Close Encounters somewhere. I wrote something like, "Oh yeah, it's a beautiful companion piece to E.T." And it is. He really exceeded Close Encounters with E.T. And for me, I mean, E.T. is my number 2. It is everything Close Encounters should have been, but for me, Close Encounters just has that nostalgia. But this as well also has bags of it. The sequences with the kids when they are racing away on their bikes, I just love it, and they're being chased and
hoodies up on your BMX.
Hoodies up, yeah.
Every time you rode a bike as a kid, you'd put your hood up, and you'd want a basket to have an alien in, wouldn't you?
And they're just finding all the ramps somehow. They're always this. They're awesome. That's just awesome. I love it. Absolutely love it. And Drew Barrymore was fantastic in it. Again, he just pulls all the stops out, getting the best child actors. Iconic scenes. It brings the bit that brings me to tears more than anything else is when E.T.'s discovered as he's gone out to send his message off, and it's just this kind of like,
yes,
he looks like a Ferrero Rocher on the ground. He's just like dusted with a bit of icing sugar.
Yeah,
he's in the creek at the bottom, and they find him. Oh man, it's so sad. It's so good. And I always wanted someone to come round to my house and put all those plastic tubes up in my house so I could walk through just to get into my house when they've got ET in there and they're trying to like save him. It's a sensational movie, and you know, didn't he make this when he was like 30 or something, Steven Spielberg? It's just insane how he could be such an amazing director. Jaws, you've got Close Encounters, and ET. Okay, he's got a few duffs in the middle, but what a massive era for him.
It's a great run for him.
Yeah, superb. Yes, go on the list, please. Yeah,
E.T. has made the list. So we're round to me. My top two have not been mentioned yet, and I think the two best movies that Steven Spielberg have ever made were released in the same year.
Okay.
That year was 1993, where he made, in my opinion, my favorite Steven Spielberg movie, and he also made his best film, the absolute masterpiece, the harrowing World War II epic. I'm going back to the World War II movies. That is Schindler's List. I think this is Steven Spielberg's best film. It is the story of a greedy German businessman named Oskar Schindler, who turns out to feels guilty being part of the Nazi party and uses his factory to house and rescue Jews in the Holocaust. He manages to save just 1,100 Jews, which is it's a phenomenal achievement. It's based on a true story. The performances from Liam Neeson, but especially Ralph Fiennes, whose character is just embodies evil, really. It was nominated for, I think, 12 Academy Awards, and it won 8, including Best Picture. It's ranked as the 8th best film ever made by the American Film Institute. For me, Schindler's List, shot in black and white. It's a film that Steven Spielberg didn't want to make. He didn't feel that he was an accomplished enough filmmaker to make this film, and tried to chop it around to different directors. And nobody took it on, and he did take it on. And along with the other movie that he made in 1993, I think this is his triumphant film. I think Schindler's List deserves to be on this list. Chris?
How can a director make two films like he did in the same space at the same time? It's just beyond me. And arguably his two best films. I'm sure we'll get to that. Yes, there's a reason why Steven Spielberg submitted Schindler's List as his final piece of work for his degree. And of course, he got an A for it. So yes, I agree with his tutors. It needs to go on this list.
John?
Absolutely no argument here. The use of color to highlight the girl in the red coat, the idea that they're walking through a snowstorm, but the snow doesn't melt. The realization that these, in fact, just being is it Auschwitz or is it Dachau that they end up at, where they're actually you know exactly what could happen when they're standing there in those showers when they've been herded in like cattle. It is horrible. Yet these films, both films from 1993, this one as well, these are what I would consider the apex or the pinnacle of his career so far. I don't think he's managed to meet either of these films. And this one in particular, this is one of the few films where you sit there at the end, you watch all the credits, and everybody in the cinema is deathly quiet while and you can hear the shuffle as they pad their eyes to get rid of the tears before the lights go up. Yeah, this is a masterpiece.
Indeed. That's 3 yeses. It's on the list. Matt, what would have you said?
I would have said yes as well.
Excellent.
It's not really. Where is it on my list? Let's have a look. Not that it makes any difference. It's down at number 8 on my list, and that's not an indication that I don't enjoy the movie. I think it's an important piece of cinema, without a doubt. And for me, as Chris spoke of, he was actually on the phone video calling Industrial Light and Magic to go over the dinosaur special effects, the CGI special effects, and Pixar, who had a lot to do with the software for Jurassic Park, whilst he was shooting Schindler's List. So he was juggling not only post-production on Jurassic Park, but he was filming this magnum opus of his, and I assume it's his most important film, and he regards it as such. Every film that I've got in my top 10 here, it could be a number 1, and so it doesn't matter that it's down there. It should be on the list. It's absolutely sensational, and it's the other John Williams score that I think is his best as well. And I hats off and clap for Ben Kingsley for me in this.
Oh
It's
God,
just
yes.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I
And
can't
Liam
remember.
Neeson has never been better. I mean, what on earth is he doing now? But back Liam Neeson, he had one great performance as far as I'm concerned, and then that was in Schindler's List. But Ben Kingsley, oh well, what a performance!
Ollie,
That was a yes, by the way. Yeah.
I think I've only ever watched this movie twice. It's so incredibly moving and upsetting that it's not one that I kind of go back to go, oh, I'm gonna watch a movie, I'm gonna put Schindler's List on, because it's not that. It is such an important piece of cinema. It's the same as Matt. It's number 8 on my list, but I have to say yes, just because it's such an amazing movie. It's made the list.
it has indeed. Chris, it's you. Are you gonna take the other one this time?
Well, it would be stupid of me not to, really, wouldn't it? Yes. So Steven Spielberg in 1993, whilst making Schindler's List, was so preoccupied with whether or not he could make Jurassic Park that he didn't think whether he should stop to think that he should. But he should have, and he did, and thank God he did, because Jurassic Park is an amazing film. I still vividly remember going to see it in the cinema, the Odeon in Aberdeen, and I was just mesmerized. 12-year-old watching it with my friends. It was just amazing. Everything about it is just so good. The pace is brilliant, the storytelling, the acting, the science as well, even though it's been kind of disproved a lot. The idea that you would get dinosaur DNA through sap in a tree, and then recreating dinosaurs using, I think it was toad DNA, bits of toad to fill in the gap. And it's just fantastic. Is it Laura? No, not Laura Linney.
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern, thank you.
Yeah.
And Jeff Goldblum, and of course Sir David Attenborough. Richard Attenborough.
Sam Neill, yeah.
And just the moment when they first see a dinosaur in those Jeeps. I still want one of those Jeeps for real. Just brilliant and infinitely quotable, and it's parodied so many times, but yeah, spawned a number of sequels, and then reboot sequel. What, they're on to the third rebooted sequel now coming out.
Yeah, coming out shortly.
Yeah, Jurassic World. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing beats the original for me.
John?
I love Alice Howard. Yes, much the same. I actually read the book of the Michael Crichton book, and the Michael Crichton is very good at taking a single premise and then extrapolating on from that, and that's where this is where it comes from. The whole idea of mosquitoes full of blood in amber. Tree sap in amber that turns into amber, which gets sucked out. And I mean, the main thing is, can you just imagine the pitch? Dinosaurs on an island. I think this was. I think Sam Neill is cantankerous and with the kids. The dinosaurs, I don't know where the fake ones end and the real ones start, which was a real quote. It's the Triceratops poo. I mean, Jeff Goldblum walking into shot and just going, "What a pile of shit." Wayne Knight kicking it all off. Samuel L. Jackson getting it back online. The Raptors. The Raptors are the evil part of this film. And of course. We've already said it. Two best films of Steven Spielberg in 1 year.
Matt, Jurassic Park.
I love Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. I'm a huge fan. It's the only film I've ever been back to cinema to see more than once, and I saw it 4 times. I went with my family. I went with my friends. I went on a date, and I went with my dad as well. So 4 times, and each time it got better and better and better. But I'm going to be controversial here, right? I'm going to say yes, obviously, it doesn't make any difference anyway. But I don't think it's the pinnacle of Steven Spielberg. I think it's a film that revolutionized what we think as a modern blockbuster these days. It has so many technical advancements in this film that we now take for granted every time we go to the cinema. You know, Spielberg partly funded the creation of the digital theatre sound for this as well, DTS sound. The CGI, they were originally going to do the dinosaurs like they did. If anyone remember Willow, I know you probably remember Willow, Ollie. Willow, the dragon at the end, the 2-headed dragon.
Yeah.
They used a technique called, it was basically stop motion animation like Ray Harryhausen had done for years and years, decades and decades, but they put motion blur to it. They'd used like photographic techniques to add motion blur to make it more lifelike and less like stop motion animation. That's how they were originally going to make these dinosaurs, and they pushed a lot of money into development that way until this guy called Dennis Muren, who was part of ILM and Lucasfilm, who Spielberg had worked on with Close Encounters. A lot of ILM had come from the 1977 with the Star Wars and the Lucasfilm that would come from afterwards, and they all started Industrial Light and Magic, and so they were going to do it a different way, and obviously thank God it didn't go that way. But Stan Winston's animatronic effects in this are just unbelievable, and I watched it again a few days ago, and this must be seriously in the over 20 times I've seen this movie. And the best bit in it for me, and the special, the CGI is looking a bit creaky. It is looking a bit creaky in the digital age. It really does need a really amazing. I've not seen it in a 4K remaster, but I'm hoping that if it has been made, and I do say it looks better, because the digital copy that I saw, CGI wasn't looking great, but the animatronics look insane still. They look so good. And the birth of the raptor in the egg, the baby raptor, when they've just broken out of the ride, is sublime, and it looks incredible to this day. And like John said, the Triceratops, as it's breathing, and Sam Neill is on its belly and it's breathing, it's just the latex like covering they've got is so lifelike. It's just incredible. And they built a life-size T-Rex for the close-up scenes in the first T-Rex attack. And imagine what it was like being the two kids there, just how scared you'd have been. I mean, seriously, it scares me thinking about it now. It gives me chills. The problem I have with it, and the reason I don't think it's anywhere near his best film, is that it's so slow at the beginning. Once you've got past the brilliant section with Bob Peck, right, the great British actor Bob Peck, and the raptor at the beginning, and shoot her. Once that's finished, there's nothing for another half an hour, 35 minutes. You're introduced to the exposition of how the dinosaurs are created, and it's all fun, and you've got great characters being introduced. Richard Attenborough is fantastic. I love the way he's introduced as this cheeky like billionaire who pops in, steals the champagne, and bursts the cork in the trailer. But then that's it. It's really slow until things start to happen, and you're like, okay, we've seen this brachiosaur, and the dinosaurs are only on it for like 2 minutes, and then that's all you get until the second half of the film. And that, for me, is a really big issue. Seeing it now, looking at it from an adult perspective, is a real issue for me. But you can't deny it's an incredible film. It's also really funny. The script has got some really funny lines in it. I mean, Jeff Goldblum gets the vast share of those lines, and I love the affectionate kind of relationship that I forget the young girl's name, and her adoration that she has for John Grant, and the boy as well. He's obviously, he's got an intellectual connection with him, but she's got a bit of a crush on the Sam Neill character, and it is a very smart script. A sensational film, absolutely sensational. I wanted to talk quickly, if I just can, about where was it? Can't find it. Anyway, yeah, I was really interested to learn that it was Pixar that had the software that helped develop the CGI. I thought that was really interesting. I didn't even know Pixar was around then, to be quite honest.
Yeah, no, the Pixar have been around since the 80s.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, right, okay. That's I mean, the CGI. I remember very, very, very affectionately the moment of first seeing the dinosaurs, and we'd seen rubbish on television of documentaries that were animated. We'd only ever seen them animated in a very crude style, or a stop motion animation with plasticine or plastic, and it was a moment where your jaw drops. It's diminished over the years, but then a lot of special effects have, and the effect that they have. But it is a monster movie in every aspect. So yes, it has to go on.
Ollie, it's on. Yes or no?
I was 10 when I first saw this at the cinema. My granddad took me to see it. It was just me and him. We had a bit of a thing for a couple of years where my granddad and I went to see a lot of movies in the early 90s. And I remember the scene with the velociraptors towards the end. I was like this. I was watching it in the cinema like this because I was genuinely terrified. But at the same time, I wanted to watch it because it absolutely captured me. And I think, Matt, what you were saying about not kind of seeing the dinosaurs until, I don't know how far into it, until we see the brachiosaur. I think that just adds to it. It just builds, doesn't it? You're going to watch a dinosaur movie and you desperately want to see these dinosaurs, and you've been told in all the build up to this that these dinosaurs look real. Like the hype around it at the time. I remember that even as a 10-year-old, they're saying you're going to get to see real life like dinosaurs for the first time ever in your life. And I was totally blown away by it. I completely believed that these were real. And they used all the tricks, like you said. So there was puppets, like a massive kind of puppet head of like the T-Rex, the velociraptors sometimes with CGI, sometimes with guys in suits, and like the Velociraptor kind of opening the door, that was like a hand in a glove. Amazing. And like for me at the time, I couldn't tell what was what would. I don't suppose I really particularly knew, but I think it holds up pretty well, to be honest. Like now, if I looked closely, I could see what's CGI and kind of what's more practical. But I absolutely love this movie. It's it's in my top 5 movies of all time. Yeah, absolutely deserves to be on the list.
I mean, it's not like Spielberg hasn't got a form for not showing the bad thing. So Jaws. So
I completely understand, and he's a filmmaker that can pull it off. And
yes,
I wondered why he goes back to stuff like ET and makes a special edition where he adds digital ET in, but he can't go back and clean up the dinosaurs. For what is I think it needs it. I genuinely think the CGI needs looking at. Whereas the animatronics are it just proves to you, and you look back at the Lord of the Rings stuff now, the stuff that stands out now in the Lord of the Rings is the miniature stuff that still work. The stuff that is created in miniature is magnificent to this day, whereas the CGI is a bit stinky, And I'm not saying that it affects the film overall. It really doesn't. I just think once you've seen those brachiosaurs and you've had that introduction, there's nothing for too long. And it's probably a reason John brought up for Close Encounters. It's exactly the same thing. He just needed to tighten it up a little bit. Because from after that, it's peerless, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you read the book, you end up going into the actual science of DNA. So I mean, he's tightened it up from the book.
He's got to, the exposition has got to get it in there. And I read somewhere that the way that he decided to shorten that was to animate it and make John Hammond come up and the little DNA strand talk about it and stuff. Yeah, do you know what? My favourite scene in all of it is probably an acting scene where John Hammond, Richard Attenborough is talking about how he first came down to London from Scotland and he set up his flea circus. The facial acting in that is, and he knows that he's fucked up, he's screwed up, he's made a mistake, but he can't let it go. He's the type of person that has so much drive and so much future that he just wants it to work, and he's desperate for it. Next time we'll make it better. Next time we'll and obviously we have got next time. We've made umpteen films after this, but that sequence is for me was really moving, and I'd not really taken that much notice of it prior to seeing it the last time round, which must have been about sort of 8-9 years ago. Watching it again, I was very appreciative of that sequence.
It's a yes from me. As I've already alluded, I think it's one of his 2 best films. I like, apparently all 4 main lead actors were Steven Spielberg's first choice for the roles. He rung them and they all said yes, it's Steven Spielberg and it's dinosaurs. Of course I'm going to say yes. I think the film it is just brilliant. I went and saw it when I was 9 years old. I remember going to the cinema in Brentwood, and we got the last seats in the house, which were in the very front row in the bottom left-hand corner. So I had to watch it looking up in the sky, but I didn't care because I was getting to see it. I remember, and I'm sure this is why the cinema doesn't exist anymore, because there were several people just sitting in the aisles because they'd sold all of the seats and they just let more people in, which I'm sure is against some serious fire codes and all sorts of stuff like that. But in 1993, everybody was just desperate to see this movie, and just being completely blown away, like being scared by the T-Rex and the Velociraptors, and it just phenomenal. I believe these dinosaurs were real. I showed my girls last year over lockdown, and they were blown away as well. They really enjoyed it. I can remember them huddling in really close in the kitchen scene with the Velociraptors to me, because they were. It is one of those scenes where it's just tense and scary. I think it's one of his best films. It's one of the best films ever made. It's made the list. Can
I just put my hand up and say, I just wanted to say, you're talking about the casting and stuff like that, and that's absolutely true. But I did read that Jim Carrey did an audition for the Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum character, and they were really impressed with him. They didn't cast him. They didn't want him in the end. They wanted Jeff Goldblum, but wouldn't that have been? I think Jim Carrey would have been quite good in that role because we wouldn't have seen him in anything else before that.
Yeah.
I think he would have been quite good at Ian Malcolm.
Yeah,
but you don't.
He was in Earth Girls Are Easy with Jeff Goldblum, like in the late 80s.
Okay.
He was one of the aliens, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Good movie.
Right.
Gina
So
Davis.
I'm conscious we're running out of time a little bit. So we have 5 films. So we have Saving Private Ryan, Jaws, E.T., Schindler's List, and Jurassic Park. We have a 5. John, can you give us a 6?
Okay, we're going to go back to where we started. It's a bullwhip, a hat, a leather coat, and a Boy Scout riding through the desert. I'm going to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the prequel, and the end of the trilogy. We find out for no reason why Indiana Jones has a scar across his chin. We find we find out that he wasn't scared of snakes until he fell into a vat of them. We find out that he could do magic and fall through a solid wooden floor in a train car. We also find out that he's very good at holding grudges. So
he's named after the dog.
And he's named after the dog.
Which was was actually the name of George Lucas's dog.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, this is kind of George Lucas's other idea when he came up with Star Wars. This is the other B movie serial that he would have wanted to do, and he just happened to get Spielberg on board for it. This is the one which I think irons out all the kinks. I think this one, apart from the very obvious camera mistakes, the production mistakes, I think this takes all the characters that have gone before. I think this brings in new characters at a pace. I think you have good guys, you have bad guys. It's straight down the line. It's straight down the line. The best Indiana Jones movie. There, I've said it. We'll argue about it in a second. It starts off with Indiana Jones running back after stealing an artifact that's been found in the desert, and his dad working on his Grail diary, and telling him to wait, count to 20 in Greek. In that time, the guys turn up and the sheriff goes, you stole that from these guys who found it. Cut to a ship 20, 30 years later, and it's the same guy with the same artifact in the middle of the sea, and Indiana's about to be thrown over the side. Obviously he escapes in dramatic fashion. He goes back home to take on his college professor persona again. And in doing so, he gets a letter from his dad, and it gets dragged into finding the Holy Grail, into his dad's passion. But it turns out his dad's actually been kidnapped, and he's doing this to save his dad. This whole thing is to save his dad. Everyone else is after the Grail. He's doing this to get his dad from being kidnapped by the Nazis and rescuing him from a castle, and going to Berlin and getting the Grail diary signed by Adolf Hitler, to escaping in a hydrogen airship, an airplane, to riding through the desert and taking on a tank on a horse, to meeting the final crusade, what we consider to be possibly the oldest and final crusader. ever to be mapped, and then leaving him there with nothing to do more than read the Bible, not even a crossword. This just trips along so nicely. The chemistry between all the actors is amazing. Sean Connery, 12 years older than Harrison Ford, playing his dad to a T. Sean Connery's line deliveries are amazing. When he's in the tank and he's getting his face slapped with the glove, it's a case of, what does this teach you? It says, this teaches me that goose-stepping morons like yourselves should be reading books instead of burning them. It's Salah is along for the ride as well. It is just, everything from the other two films is in this one, except it's done slicker, better, and easier. Apart from the X marks the spot until the next scene when they have to knock through the floor, and then the X has disappeared in the library. The boat chase, his boat is shot to pieces, and yet they escape on his boat, where all of a sudden the engine works again. So not without its issues, not without its filmic gotchas, but yeah, this is the best Indiana Jones movie in my opinion. It should be on this list.
Matt? Last Crusade.
Yeah, Last Crusade. This for me is the pinnacle of Steven Spielberg at his most entertaining. Jurassic Park isn't. It is technically his pinnacle, but this is Spielberg at his pinnacle. He made it 4 years earlier with Last Crusade. The pace of Last Crusade is unbelievable. It just does not stop. As John said, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, there is another sequence. You know, the rats under the library in Venice, the fact that it's all petrol, it's all fuel under there, and it gets lit. You've got, then straight after that, you move off somewhere else. You've got it's the culmination of every pulp Boyzone adventure. It takes, as John said, every other bit of the other two movies and makes it better. Raiders came first. Yes, it is good, but it's not as good as The Last Crusade. The Last Crusade is absolutely sensational. And all I'll say is my favorite line from it is I think from the brilliant Denham Elliott, and he says, "The search for the Grail is the search for the divine in all of us." What a divine film. Gotta go on.
Ollie? Last Crusade?
It's my least favorite of the three. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say no. I mean, I remember as kids,
Mr. Bronson's in it. Mr. Bronson from Grange Hill. He's Hitler.
As Hitler, yeah.
Hitler. That's an amazing bit.
Quick, interesting story about Michael Sheared. I was once on a flight to Indianapolis to go to a Star Wars convention, and Michael Sheared played an Imperial officer, one that was choked by Vader in Empire Strikes Back.
Empire, yeah.
Yeah, and Michael Sheared got terribly drunk waiting for this plane to kind of take off, and was having a go at like the stewards and stewardesses that were kind of letting you onto the plane because the plane hadn't taken off yet. And they didn't let him on the flight. He had to get a later flight. So
Amazing.
Michael Sheared got left behind.
That's brilliant.
Which is hilarious. Yeah, it's my least favorite of the trilogy. I absolutely loved it. I saw it at the cinema. Me and my brother once came to blows because we had an argument about whether Han Solo and Indiana Jones were the same person, were the same actor. And I was like, they're the same actor. He's like, they're not. Indiana Jones is skinnier. And it's true, Indiana Jones was skinnier because he had some amazing workout regime because he always had to take his shirt or took his shirt off in a couple of the movies. But yeah, me and my brother actually has a physical fight over whether Han Solo and Indiana Jones are the same person. But
who won?
Well, I was right, but I didn't mean I won the fight. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say no.
It's a no from Ollie, but it's a yes from me. This to me is the best Indiana Jones film by far. I think the opening is brilliant with River Phoenix. I think it's an awesome way to do the prequel bit, and the ending is that one of all the films, it's the one that stays in my head. The walking across the ravine, that it's not there, and you just have to have faith. That moment just stays with me as probably one of the most memorable Indiana Jones moments to me. I just think it is the most entertaining, the most fun, the best Indiana Jones movie. I don't think he's got better. I do love Raiders. I think Raiders is great, but for me, this is the best one. It's the one I've got my top 5 sitting in front of me, and it was the last film on my personal top 5 of Steven Spielberg that hadn't been mentioned, and it's got on the initial list. So all of my 5 have been represented. So I'm very happy. So it's a yes from me for Last Crusade. Chris?
Can I just do a quick fan theory before Chris has his say?
Yeah.
So Last Crusade. So only going to mention this very briefly. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You know, at the start when there's the nuclear bomb and he hides inside the fridge, and everyone's like, "How the hell did he survive that? That's mental." So I read this fan theory online that the reason he survived is because he had the
drink.
Yeah,
He drank from the Grail.
Yeah, because he'd been healed by the Grail and like drank from the Grail. That's why he was able to survive like the nuclear explosion. Whether that's true or not, if Lucasfilm are watching, then
his dad wouldn't have died of cancer.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have that. Yeah.
It was quashed by the Crusader because he'd said it only works within the boundaries of the temple.
Of the seal.
Yeah.
Washed.
So Raiders is my favorite of the 4 films and probably 5 films. But Last Crusade is as good a film. Brilliant casting, making James Bond Indiana Jones's father. The chemistry is amazing. Everything that you said, I agree with. It's a great film. John has chosen wisely.
Just quickly,
that is the cup of a carpenter.
I want to follow on from Ollie's bit about Han Solo. I introduced my girls to both Star Wars and Indiana Jones in the same film, but they'd watched all the Star Wars movies before they'd watched Indiana Jones. So my 5/6-year-old was going, "Daddy, why is Han Solo got a hat and a whip and isn't he in space?" She got very, very confused as to why Han Solo was
sharper than my big brother.
So.
Can I say quickly? I'll be super quick. I promise you. Just
it's your nom anyway. So carry on.
Oh, okay. Just quickly about the Last Crusade. I was just mentioning quickly. John mentioned it about the switch between the receiving the hat from the Panama hat from the guy, and then switching to the boat, the Portuguese boat where he's going after Coronado. That mix where the hat comes and then the hat comes up, for me, is as good as the mix that they do that Stanley Kubrick did in 2001, where they throw the bone into the spaceship and the bone into the space. It's just as good. I love it so much.
I have to say, dissecting 2001 just briefly, it's not even a good cut. It doesn't even matter.
2001 is another podcast, and I'll fight you on everything.
Well, so Stanley Kubrick then. Okay, should we talk about Stanley Kubrick's movie?
No.
Let's talk about Stanley Kubrick. Is this not going to go on? Because I won't talk about it. If it's not going to go on, let's not waste the time because we don't have a lot of time.
It's not on my list.
It's not on my list.
It's not on my list.
I was debating.
You can tell everybody what it was, man. No. Everybody knows, but
This is artificial intelligence, and these people don't know what they're talking about. Come over to my podcast, and we'll talk about artificial intelligence.
I enjoyed it, Matt.
Do you know what? I had
probably number 10 for me.
With Jaws in between, I had 3 science fiction films from Steven Spielberg in my top 5, and this is just insane. Let's not do it then. I'll go for something else.
Have you got something else?
One of the other sci-fi ones.
What I forgot down here? Oh God, there's
basically AI might have been all right if it didn't have 5, 6, 7 endings.
It doesn't have 5, 6, 7 endings.
Is this the last?
It doesn't. It has.
Is this likely to be the last one?
This is our last
Last
spot.
spot.
We have 6, so we just need one more film, Matt.
Well, it's
Can
not
you
going
get
to go
one?
on, is it? Yeah, it's not going to go
Well,
on.
AI
All right,
is not
well,
going to go on, no.
it's not
But
going to go on. I don't have time to talk about AI. I could watch AI. Anyone who's watching or anyone who's listening, watch AI because these guys
It is
don't know
good.
what to talk.
It is
They
good.
don't
It
know
is a
what they're
great
talking
film.
about.
It is a great
And I
film.
know Ollie doesn't really like robots. You don't like the fact that robots are going to take over the world, do you, Ollie? I've heard you talk about
No,
it.
no.
quite
I
often.
think they are,
robots.
but I mean, it should be a genuine worry of our
Yeah.
generation.
And it is. And they are worried about it because they will do. They'll inherit the earth. And also, yeah. Do we know at the end of that movie whether the aliens are actual kind of like evolved androids, organic? Anyway, no one's listening to this anyway, so it's not going in.
So I gave up after he stared at the blue fairy, mate.
Oh, it's Pinocchio. It's Pinocchio.
I know.
It's Pinocchio.
That's where it should have ended.
which, if you've listened to our Disney podcast, is one of the 5 best Disney films ever made.
I don't want to say. Okay. I'm not going to say. Minority Report is number 9. I'm not going to say that because we spoke about that in Tom Cruise one. That got on the list anyway, didn't it? I haven't written anything, but Catch Me If You Can. Anyone fancy that for the 7th spot? No.
There's one more that is more deserving, but that
it's not here though. It's not here though.
Because we've got.
I could feel them all. Like, how about War of the Worlds? Like, I don't know what to say now. War of the Worlds, Ready Player One, Empire of the Sun.
Actually, War of the Worlds is probably the closest you'll ever get to the book. It's probably the closest version you're ever going to get to the book. That's what I want to say about that film, and I actually think it's a really good, damn good update.
There's nothing else other than the ones I've got here that are worth.
Are we at the stage where we shout out movies and we vote?
Shout them out. Shout them
I
out.
was about to say, Ollie, go on, shout one out, and if
Shout them out.
see if
Raiders
people
of
say.
the Ark.
Can we have another Indiana Jones? Because that is on here.
Yeah.
We can have another
Raiders,
Indiana Jones.
yes.
All right.
Raiders.
Well, I'll go with Raiders then.
John.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I mean, we
It's
don't
got
even have to
on.
be
No.
unanimous. It's got on already, so that's 3. So that's fine. 'Cause it was my vote. So.
We have 7 films. We have 2 Indiana Jones ones. So there we go. So we have 7 films. I'm going to go around again. Ollie, you've just shouted out Raiders and it's made it on. So Chris, is there another one that you think is deserving? And if it gets 4 votes, it goes on.
Well, Raiders was on my list.
Yeah, it's
the
on.
only other thing on my list was Minority Report.
Anybody else back up Minority Report as one of his best?
Yeah, I'd back up Minority Report as one of his best as well.
Matt
Yeah,
and
my hands up.
Ollie? No.
It doesn't beat any of the ones that we've already got on there for me.
For me, I had Minority Report at number 8 on my personal list, so I probably I wouldn't have said yes. It falls outside of my top 7. My shout is Munich. I think Munich is brilliant. It was number 6 for me, but not everybody else. John, anything for you?
Not really. I watched it last night, and no,
It's good.
it's good, but I can't in all conscience vote for it as an 8.
Have we missed anything else?
No, I think we can talk about Ready Player One being very good. Please go and watch it if you've not seen it.
Ready
I
Player
think
One is
that's
very
really
good, but I would say read the book first.
It's just got no stakes to it.
Yeah.
The book-
Well, yeah.
The book is
So-
excellent. The book is excellent. The only other one for me, Amistad. I think Amistad's great. I think it's a hidden gem of Steven Spielberg's work. For me,
I haven't quite caught up with that again. So
and I don't know who's seen Empire of the Sun, but I think that it didn't do very well at all, and it is quite unapproachable. It's a very different Steven Spielberg film, but it's worth seeing for a multitude of reasons. It's very good. It's a very, very good film.
I think
Bale's
Empire.
amazing in it.
Sorry, yeah, Empire of the Sun and The Color Purple. I think these are films that he had to make so he could get his head around Schindler's List.
Yeah, that's a brilliant thing to say, that, John. That's
And
really
they're definitely films to see. They may be hard work, but they all add to the emotional growth that goes into such a film as Schindler's List. I think Amistad, from what I remember of it, because it's been a while, is he tried to catch lightning in a bottle again, and I don't think it quite worked.
It's
So-
a bit formulaic for me, bit too much procedure in it. It's a bit too formulaic for me.
I think
the
it
Terminal's
depends
good.
if-
The Terminal is
The
good.
Terminal
as
is,
well.
I think it's a good movie. Yeah,
That gives me the same feels as always. To be honest, the Terminal does. It hits me right there.
Matt briefly mentioned it, but Catch Me If You Can. That made me want to commit
that was another
major
one on my
fraud.
top 10.
I really enjoyed it. For about 10 minutes, I was like, how can I? No.
Yeah, I want to be an airline pilot and just sit in the jump seat. There you go.
Yeah,
Can't believe
As
we
we
not
said-
nominated Hook.
I mean, it's great.
Even Spielberg didn't nominate Hook.
I loved Hook from when I was a kid, and loved Rufio. But
It's actually a very good kids film, but it's not one of the best.
Yeah, it's BFG level.
Yeah, I have problems with that one as well.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we have 7. We have decided on our top 7 Steven Spielberg movies, and we have to remove 2. So our 7, in no particular order at the moment, are Saving Private Ryan, Jaws, E.T., Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and then The Last Crusade and Raiders of the Lost Ark, the 2
Oh my
Indiana Jones
God.
movies. That is our 7 nominated Steven Spielberg movies. Ollie, we started with you. What is the least deserving film on that list?
It's The Last Crusade for me.
Me? You're not going to be happy that I said this, but it's E.T. for me. Chris?
Last Crusade.
John?
I'm gonna say E.T.
E.T.
Oh,
Yeah.
Matt, what is the least? Well, you might as well just. I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm
It's
allowed to have
choice
a
between
vote, aren't
E.T.
I?
Yeah,
No,
but
I
then-
can vote, right?
Yeah,
Well,
we'll
I'm still
go
going
and
to have to
vote.
choose.
You're
Right.
still going to have to choose.
Well, I'd have put Raiders.
You'd have
right?
put Raiders, which is fine. But because you're the outlying vote, you have to choose between E.T. and The
That's
Last
not
Crusade.
fair. That isn't fair. That
Don't
really
get this
isn't
wrong,
fair.
Matt. Don't get this wrong.
No way, man. You can't make me do this. Like 2 of my favourite films of all time. Oh, Jesus.
Mate, there's 7 of your most favorite films of all time.
Oh, God. Can we not vote again? E.T.
E.T. has gone.
I can't believe you made me do
Oh.
that.
Oh, you've already
It's like punching a small little alien in the
I
face.
know,
Such
I
a
know.
lovely little lad.
I'm gonna
You
be
punched him in his
completely
little
picked on by aliens
funny
now.
head.
You've already voted for Raiders. John, did you do Last Crusade? You did. Or did you?
No, I
you
did
voted
E.T.
E.T. Yeah, so
E.T.
go on, John. You need to vote again, mate. What's left?
I was gonna say Raiders.
And I'm also going to say Raiders, which means that Raiders has 3
Chris
votes,
is quitting.
and Raiders has gone off the list, which means we have our top 5 Steven Spielberg movies, which are Saving Private Ryan, Jaws, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which are my top 5 Steven Spielberg movies, just as an aside, guys.
He's engineered this. He's engineered it. Honestly.
So the Last Crusade has already been voted by Chris and Ollie. So, John, what's least deserving on that list?
You're really not going to like me. I'm going to say Saving Ryan.
Shaving who?
Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan. Who else is that? Matt.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. And I'm, in all honesty, Jaws is my number 5. So I would have voted Jaws, which means with 2 votes, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is our number 5 Steven Spielberg movie. So, Ollie, of the 4 remaining,
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List. And Chris.
Saving Private Ryan.
Wow. So Saving Private Ryan is number 4. Matt?
The
Oh,
dinosaur.
you've done Jurassic Park. Sorry.
Dinosaur.
John.
Uh,
Yours, Schindler's, or Jurassic Park?
oh man. I think I'm gonna say Jaws.
And Chris,
Jaws.
with 3 votes, Jaws is number 3 on our list.
I can't believe we've lost Jaws and E.T., man. Off that list, that should be right at the top. Why did I do that?
So our number 1 Steven Spielberg movie, your choices are Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. I know Ollie's pick, and I know, well, Ollie? Schindler's List or Jurassic Park? Jurassic Park. Matt?
Well, it's not Jurassic Park, so it's Schindler's List is number 1.
John? I'm not sure there's a wrong answer.
There isn't a wrong answer. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Jurassic Park's number 1.
Chris?
Jurassic Park.
And I made the list beforehand, and I'm sticking with it. Number 1, Jurassic Park. So
Is that your top 5, Paul?
it's not in the same order, but it's very, very close.
Ollie.
So
Oh, sorry.
And he's got to do the rundown first.
Yeah.
show's top 5 are
Honestly.
number 5.
Let's do it all
Indiana
again.
Jones and the Last Crusade. Number 4, Saving Private Ryan. Number 3, Jaws. Number 2, Schindler's List. And the number 1 Steven Spielberg movie, Jurassic Park.
Play the sting.
Right.
And that's our Steven Spielberg episode, everybody.
Matt, how did we do?
How do we do, Matt?
Because we asked Chris last week.
Excuse me, what's this? What's this?
That's the beauty of our show.
I'm
It's the
gonna
5 of
tweet.
us.
I'm gonna tweet Spielberg, right? Does he have a tweet? I'm sure he has a tweet.
I'm sure he
there's
has
the
a
blue
tweet.
tick. Yeah, we're gonna put his list down there. I want his personal favorite top 5. I want to see how they compare.
it'd be nice. It'd be nice.
Be good. Well done.
Signing off for today. Ollie, anything to say?
No, just like we said earlier, put your top 5 Spielberg movies down below in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening, just to, send us a tweet or an Instagram message. Let us know what you think.
Definitely. Chris?
My Spielberg 40 on film will be Empire of the Sun. He turned
nice.
40 during production, so I'll be covering that one.
Excellent. John?
Just a quick reminder that all our socials are at 5 on Film Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're catching up on our writings and stuff that go along with all this. Watch out for all our interesting extra stuff as well.
Indeed. And Matt?
Come, I think now that we're on YouTube, as well as all the podcast stuff, come and make. It's much easier for you to make comments and stuff on YouTube. So If you do watch us there, or you've listened to us and then come across YouTube, make some suggestions. Come on, chat to us, because we will get back to you. We don't, and none of us have had I've got jobs. We're all homeless. We haven't got a penny between us, so we'll always have time to reply to you. So yeah, make comments and we'll have a good chat, and let's catch up about movies, because we all like talking about it, and I'm sure you're here listening to us because of that reason. So make contact, and we'll see you next time.
Indeed. And yeah, that's a reminder for the YouTube. It's new. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell for new videos, comment, and follow us on all the socials. Our next one, we've had to push World War II down a little bit. Mentioned a few of the movies that may feature on that list already. But our next 5 on film is going to be Al Pacino movies. We're going to try and work out the top 5 of Al Pacino, and World War II will follow on from that. See you soon.
I'll be right here.
All views expressed in this podcast are that of the individual and do not represent the views of any entity whatsoever which they have been or will be affiliated with in the future.